I killed 2 angels this week. Those are my brothers. I'm hunted. I rebelled, and I did it, all of it, for you. And you failed. You and your brother destroyed the world. And I lost everything. For nothing. So keep your opinions to yourself.
Jesus. Hey, it's Bob West, and I'm here with part 4 of this 16-part descent into insanity. Today we'll be looking specifically into the events of Season 5. I want to start out by making a correction to my last video. The first thing that was pointed out was that there had in fact been 2 gay characters on Supernatural before Season 5. Lily from Season 1, who died about 5 minutes after she was introduced, and Corbin from Ghostfacers, who died about 15 minutes after he was introduced, but they did exist. I also missed a genre TV show, Dante's Cove. It didn't cross my radar because it was made for a paid television channel I didn't own, and in my internet search it is billed as a soap opera, which it isn't. It's a serial television series, but they self-promoted as a soap opera for seemingly no reason at all. So, by their powers combined, there had been a whopping 10 queer genre television shows by 2008, so woo. If I'm somehow missing any more, I'll throw them in the description for this video rather than interrupt part 5 with more of this. Anyway, onwards. Season 5 was a pretty big season for laying the groundwork for what would become their relationship. In Season 4, their interactions were always taken with the knowledge that someone else was very closely watching them, and Cass's hands were somewhat tied by the will of heaven. Relationship aside, Season 5 was huge for Cass. He'd spent his entire life as a worker drone for Heaven, never had any free will before. These are the first steps he's ever taken on his own. He rebelled for Dean and for doing the right thing, but he struggles with what to do afterwards, often looking to Dean for guidance and morals. Looking in on the start of this season, Dean shows an incredible flash of guilt that Cass died for him, probably not least of all because he did not even succeed in stopping Sam from opening the cage. Then when Cass does return, he is a little distracted by the pain and dying, but also can't believe his eyes. Also though, can we just take a second to appreciate what a fucking beast Castiel is? Jesus. Where was this kind of fight choreography when Dean and Michael were fighting Lucifer in Season 13 or whatever?
How are you alive? It's a good question. How did these 2 end up on that airplane? Another good question, because the angels didn't do it. I think we both know the answer, don't we?
No. That's not possible.
Scares you? Well, it should. Now put these boys back together and go. I won't ask twice.
Cass carves the sigils into their ribs, hiding them from all angels and whatnot, and he disappears before answering Dean about how he returned. Episode 2, we get our first look at Cass learning to cope being cut off from Heaven. Both us as viewers and Dean himself start to see the consequences of Cass rebelling, how much he's lost choosing to side with Dean. Dean plasters on his brave face and tries to deflect with a bit of humor, but he is 100% done with the God train. Cass, on the other hand, is still desperate to believe that God is out there and cares. The next thing that happens is, I think, significant. Cass asks for the amulet Sam gave Dean. Dean is reluctant to give it to him. It really is, at this moment, other than his car, his most prized possession. The amulet in general is such an important symbol in this season, but Cass asks Dean to give it to him, and while Dean is reluctant, he gives in. This is, in my opinion, the first true, no-strings-attached show of trust. Dean doesn't even think the search for God is worth it, but he trusts Cass enough to let him go with the amulet. Then, of course, Free to Be You and Me. A fan favorite, and a really important landmark in that I think it is the first episode I would categorize them as friends. Before this episode, I would not say that Dean and Cass are even friends. Dean has trusted Cass, sure, and Cass rebelled because he felt connected to and believed in Dean, but their relationship was not something I think could have been classified as friendship. It just hadn't had the room it needed to develop yet. Cass comes to Dean literally desperate for his help because he has no one else in this entire world to turn to. He is completely alone, and as much as Dean wants to say no, especially to the idea that Cass has just presented that they trap and actually interrogate, possibly torture Raphael, Cass's sincere request convinces him otherwise. This is also the first episode Cass gets to spend any prolonged period of time with Dean. He gets a pretty good look at just how difficult Dean is in general all of the time. Cass doesn't understand any of the customs or reasoning. He doesn't understand why Dean wants to drive to Maine, nor why they have to lie to the police, but he trusts Dean and just follows his lead. Dean, on his part, has no fucking clue how to interact with Cass. He only knows how to be himself. He keeps throwing out joke after joke that can't possibly land, and just sort of hopes it works, and it does. Cass admits that he believes he is going to die tomorrow. Dean doesn't even believe God cares, and Cass is sure he's about to die getting his location. His plan at this moment is to die to get the information of God's whereabouts for Dean, so Dean has a chance of getting to him and getting through the apocalypse. This would be the second of many times Cass is willing to lay down his life for Dean. Dean's decision to bring Cass to a brothel is complicated. There is a lot going on here, and I can't unpack everything or we'll be here all night. Dean makes the decision to do something nice for Cass. He genuinely believes this is something that Cass should not miss out on experiencing before he dies, and he tries to give him that. But beyond that, first off,
let me tell you something. There are two things that I know for certain. One, Bert and Ernie are gay.
what a weird thing to say unprompted. Who wrote this? Jeremy Carver. What else did Jeremy Carver give us? I rebelled for this. You draped yourself in the flag of heaven, but it was ultimately for one man. A showrunner from Dean and Cass in Purgatory all the way through The Darkness being released. The man who told Misha to play Cass as a jilted lover in scenes with Dean in Season 9. Interesting. Okay, huh. I actually for once am leaning on the side of the writer opening the door to the idea that Dean is bisexual. I think this is where it happens, just given where this writer takes us. Second, that is a very brazen brothel to just exist under Maine's prostitution laws. Prostitution and solicitation are both Class E crimes, punishable by up to 6 months in jail and or a fine of $1,000 for a first offense. Although that exit they came out of looks properly underground. Leave it to Dean to know where the secret underground brothel is, I guess. Moving past it. There it is. Cass's little smile at Dean's laughter. He isn't quite sure what he did, he isn't really sure why Dean is laughing, but it's the first real, genuine smile he ever shows. This episode really doesn't get enough credit for what it means to them. They both were sort of lost. Dean feels very strongly that he lost his entire family with Sam. Cass lost his home and his family in heaven, and they sort of cling to each other in this moment out here. I don't think that without the groundwork of this episode they would have gotten nearly as close as they do. They are exactly what each other need in this moment. When they do finally trap Raphael, Dean pretty much defers to Cass, and Cass seems to try his best to emulate Dean. It's a powerful scene for sure.
I will find you.
Maybe one day. But today, you're mine, little bitch.
What he said.
Afterwards, it's pretty meaningful what Dean says to Cass about continuing to look for God. Dean made it very clear in episode 2 and the beginning of this one that he thought Cass's God search was stupid, but when Cass is crushed by Raphael, he instantly backpedals and encourages Cass because it's what Cass needs. And then for something completely different, the end. The end brings something into stark focus, and I think it has some long-reaching consequences. Cass follows Dean forever, right up to his death, right up till the end. He lost his grace and still followed Dean, doing anything he asked, still believing Dean knew best and was doing what was right. He knows they're on a suicide run and he's willing to go in anyway. This is another time Cass is willing to die for Dean, but it isn't the normal timeline, and probably isn't the first time future Cass risks his life for Dean, but anyway. I think the Dean of now saw Cass here, and I believe it plays into some of the reason he almost says yes to Michael in Point of No Return. Jumping ahead to Abandon All Hope, I love this line.
Even as we speak, it's going down.
Going down? Right. Okay, Huggy Bear. Just don't lose him.
I won't lose him.
Because Dean is, of course, making a reference to Starsky and Hutch's informant, but Cass for sure has no idea that Dean is making a reference and is just in the dark about this. This episode would also be the third time Cass agrees to potentially lay down his life specifically for Dean or Dean's cause. The song remains the same. There have been a few times it has been clear that Cass is willing to protect Sam for Dean. This one is more overt. Sam asking if Anna's plan to kill him would work, and Cass clearly believes it might, but he looks at Dean and lies. Cass also knows that it's a risk, and he will be hurt bringing Sam and Dean back in time, but when Dean asks it of him, he agrees. My Bloody Valentine is a great episode. It has a lot of nice moments between Cass and Dean. I think Cass is also starting to get the sense that Dean is giving up, or at least getting close to it. And then we get into Dark Side of the Moon. The season until Dark Side of the Moon, Cass is trying to find validation that he did the right thing. He's seeking out God to give it to him. When it becomes clear that God truly has abandoned them, he is crushed, just devastated. He doesn't know who to turn to. He really sort of very quietly shatters, and we see a bit of it in 99 Problems. God doesn't care, and Dean is giving up. Everyone is distracted with Dean and Sam and their parts in this apocalypse, and Cass really just sort of falls through the cracks, but he has lost literally every single rock and certainty he's ever had in his life, and he has nothing to fall back on. It comes to a head in Point of No Return. Cass has given up everything he has ever had for Dean, and Dean lets him down. He is angry, properly angry, and even after that, he agrees to sacrifice himself for Dean's crusade to rescue Adam, even knowing in his heart that Dean is going to give in to Michael. Sort of looking back on Dean's perspective in all this, he is trying to push a bravado, trying to cling to humor in a sort of I don't give a fuck attitude that it was pretty obviously a facade. He quips at Cass, trying to ignore just how pissed and betrayed Cass is. It's obvious in this episode that he is starting to realize just a little how much he means to Cass. He breaks the glass to cut open his hand for the sigil, knowing that Cass will come to check on his well-being. He uses to his advantage the fact that Cass will be concerned enough to open the door. Then, during the fight, he has no chance against Cass. He is entirely at his mercy. He is so broken at this point that he straight taunts Cass, asking him to kill him. I think Cass stops because that plea sort of breaks his heart a bit. The fight is also notable in that Cass really could have fucking easily killed Dean. Like, the strength Cass has, he is being very careful during a fight fueled by anger to hurt but not gravely injure Dean. It's a delicate operation. Cass doesn't wake up for several episodes. Dean looks so relieved when Cass ends up not being dead, and Cass looks so relieved to know that Dean said no to Michael. Cass runs to them, even mostly human, and still, being a fucking badass, blows through pestilence. And then when Sam loses control of Lucifer the first time, Dean decides he's going to go be at his side, and Cass tells him the only thing that will happen is he will watch his brother die. And when Dean decides to go anyway, Cass decides to go with him. He knows there is no hope. There isn't even a chance of success. He lays down his life yet again, this time for Dean to have just 5 last minutes to be with his brother. When Cass is restored, he heals Dean, and then he uses his powers to bring back the 2 people closest to Dean. He tries to connect with Dean in the car, and Dean pushes him away because he's too angry and hurt to do anything else at that moment. Cass watches him unable to move on from Sam and decides to fight his way back into hell to get Sam, for Dean. Oh man, I love Season 5. Of course, I love most seasons, so take that with a grain of salt. I have to say, the look at this season is pretty focused on Cass. Dean really was sort of falling to pieces all season, and Cass was really the one looking to Dean and making his decisions based on him. Next season, the playing field evens out a bit, and we see more sort of reciprocation. I'm excited to take a closer look at it. A new development on my end, I now have a Ko-fi account set up. Ko-fi is a site where people can support content creators by donating the price of a standard cup of coffee, in this case $3, to help support their work. Right now, my goal is to get a Yeti microphone and a pop filter so I can up my audio quality. Right now, you're listening to me being recorded on a second-hand headset microphone with a pop filter I made out of a pipe cleaner and a stocking, so you can imagine the potential improvement. A few people have donated so far, and I'm so incredibly grateful to you guys. And even if you can't donate, you should pop over and check out the page. I put up all the title cards for this series from 1 to 16, so you can get a sneak peek at what those look like. Anyways, thank you guys, and as always, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in part 5.